right, I should be live. Make sure everything's correcto. I'm going to pop out the chat here. Hopefully we'll have that. There we go. All right. Sorry, I'm copying and pasting some links and stuff so I can get my guest in here. There we go. There's the link, and let me send my guest an invite and we'll get him in here. If you read the title, it's the Waffle House shooter, defense attorney Kurt Richard Haskell, who I've had on as a guest before, talking about all kinds of stuff that got me banned a couple of times already on YouTube. Let's see if we can do it again. Just kidding. Already here. And here is the link to the meeting, Mr. Kurt. There we go. Had to, let's see what's going on in the chat here until we get our guest in here. And welcome to 420 TV. We're going to be talking about the Waffle House shooting with the defense attorney for the shooter. So if you're familiar with the case at all, it kind of had well, it's a sensitive topic, but it kind of had a one-sided press opinion, or it was only covered a certain way. And we're going to talk to Kurt Richard Haskell with kind of the other side of it, or maybe some inside information on the shooting, the shooter, the victims, and the mindset of what was going on. And if you didn't watch the trial, maybe that you might find this interesting to go back and watch it. I think it was on Court TV, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check my chat and see if anybody's in there. Abel, Little Freedom, James LaCour, what's up? So this ought to be an interesting conversation here. And keep in mind, the last three times I had Kurt Richard Haskell on, just him talking about a topic on our opinions. And this was before kind of this latest bombardment from YouTube to censor and ban people for information and ideas. They only want a one-sided view of the world through the lens of the leftist media. And can everybody hear me okay? I'm not overbearing or echoed or none of that stuff. Audio check, check, check. And maybe we'll get some people from Kurt's Facebook page, which if you're friends with Kurt on Facebook, you'll see that he has an unlimited amount of opinions and ideas that are worthy of contemplating, listening to, or tripping out on, whatever you want to call it. There I am. I'm live. That's me on the TV. I'm famous. I have 800 followers. I'm just kidding. It's so funny to me going through all of these YouTube channels. I've had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views and thousands and thousands of subs on different channels where people came for different reasons. And now I have a core testicles 1, 2, 3, a core group of people, which is cool, that have followed me through getting banned over and over again, which is really cool to have on this particular YouTube channel. So I know my 800 people are kind of, they want to be here. They're not just fair weather subscribers. You know what I mean? What's up, Scratch? Anyway, oops, did I ignore the participants? No, he's not here yet. So we're supposed to start at 3 Central, which is right about in a minute. Get my poof on for the day. I don't know. So we'll either get banned today, or maybe in America, we could have a conversation where Big Brother doesn't deem it unwatchable or unknowable or thought criminals, thought crime. Jeez. It's so crazy. And that's why, honestly, I'm not on so much, is because for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but YouTube has decided that they really just don't like me or my videos, my music videos. And I put a post on the community tab there for my video of "Move Bitch Get Out of the Way," which ironically on the same day people mowed some people down at the truckers convoy thing in Canada. And all I have to say is, my parents taught me not to play in the street. So I don't think that'll ever happen to me, getting mowed down by either a maniac or a mentally ill person or whatever, terrorist, whatever. They're not going to mow me down at an event in the street because mama taught me not to play in the street. I'm just kidding. I never knew my mother, but that's kind of obvious. Don't play in the street and you won't get run over. And some people thought that was like, I don't know what it was particularly about the video. I think it's because one of the people that got ran over in the video actually died. And, my heart goes out to them. But they were on a interstate type highway in the middle of the road. Unfortunately, they met up with a drunk guy who ran them over and killed them. But my point being, if they weren't in the road, they couldn't have got run over. Now, could they have? Cough, cough. See what's going on over here. Let's see what's going on. What's up, Steffers? Shannon, Abel, James Ortiz, what's up? How it do? What it do? The mating call for a stoner. Yes, I do. That's funny. That's why Anna knows me. She heard that mating call and came to the call. I didn't even, and I only gave her a couple of little shiny rocks and stuff. Very limited peacocking, I promise. It does, Abel. It is one of the best maskers of all time. Oh, our guest is here. Hold on. And we'll admit Kurt into the room. There we go. There he is. And I can hear you good, so sweet. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is Kurt Richard Haskell. Some of you might know him from 3 previous channels where he came on and talked, and for whatever reason, YouTube just did not like what we had to talk about. So this is a totally new channel, so we'll try to get banned again. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, we're here for maybe a topic we may or may not get banned for. I don't know in which context YouTube sees it, the conversation going. So I'll just go ahead and let you. I kind of gave them a brief summary of you being a defense attorney for what the media is calling the Waffle House shooter. And let me start off by saying there was very interesting language from all of the media outlets going back to when this first started all the way up till today, I just Googled it just now and saw a CNN report about his dealings with an electronics shop and how, you know, they were really trying to shed him into, well, I'm going to say a guilty, they have a narrative for him. I'll just put it that way. I'll let you talk on that.
Yeah, it's really a crazy case. There's so much going on, or that was going on in it. Let's see, where do I start? So I knew about this case, you know, right after it happened. It was one I was paying attention to because the facts were just so out there. You know, I didn't know what was going on with it. And, you know, I'd like to follow some of these strange cases that I've talked about on your show before. And to me, this was one of them. And I had no idea I'd be getting involved in it. I posted a few times about it on Facebook, just asking questions about strange things that were going on with it. And I had no idea what it would become for me. But a friend of mine actually knew Travis's parents and put me in touch with them back in 2019, about just before the case was a year old, so early 2019. And I started talking to them online. We became friends. I became friends with his parents, and you know, they kind of knew who I was from my dealings with the underwear bomber and being outspoken against the government and some of these things, which has become what I've become known for more so than an attorney.
Absolutely.
At the government and some of their scams or crooked involvement in some of these cases, whatever you want to call it. And his mother, I talked more with his mother, and she really wanted to get to the bottom of what was going on, because see, you have to realize what was going on is that his parents just found out about all of this in the media. You know, they just saw a news report on TV, their son was wanted for a mass shooting in Nashville. And he had kind of been estranged from the family for about 6 months or so. And he'd never really had any history of violent behavior. So this is quite a shock to them. And then, of course, he was arrested. He made no comment. And then he asked for an attorney, was put in jail. And of course, all his conversations in jail are recorded, so you didn't want to say anything in jail either. So it really left his parents at a loss as to what had happened. And his parents are very anti-government too, very untrusting, similar to me, actually, in that regard. And they asked me to get involved in the case. Travis had a public defender back then who
Scary.
had a public defender for about a year. And public defender, how do I want to say this? Very blue-pilled kind of guy, very believes the government in all aspects and that sort of thing, kind of the opposite of me.
Yeah.
Anything is whenever Travis or his parents would raise anything questionable, he didn't want to look into it and he would just kind of ignore it. Well, it started to create a divide between him and Travis because Travis no longer trusted him. Travis didn't trust the government anyway. And this just made it worse. The public defender being an employee of the government and not wanting to listen to anything Travis had to say. So initially, his mother wanted me to get involved in the case just to kind of find out what was going on, not to actually be an attorney on the case. So she asked me to go to Nashville to investigate in April 2019. The shooting was in April 2018, so just about a year later. I was actually in Nashville for the 1-year anniversary of the shooting. So I came here, I think it was for 2 weeks then, to try and investigate on the ground and talk to witnesses and go to the scene and try and check everything out and see if it seemed plausible what all the news stations and the like were reporting. And I tried to talk to his public defender then, and he would not give me any information. And I asked to meet with Travis, and he would not allow me to meet with Travis. So I was here 2 weeks, but I did not have a lot of information, just what I could scrape up from the public at that time and what I had seen in the media and was able to look into. So I'm at the end of the 2 weeks, I went to Peoria, Illinois to meet with his parents. I had not met his mother at that time. I met his dad one time in Nashville, but I did not meet his mother at that time. And I agreed to go up there to talk to them about my thoughts on the case. So my thoughts were that it's a really weird case, but I need more information. I need to talk to Travis, and I need to see some of the evidence against him. So at that time I left and just went back to Costa Rica. And they contacted me maybe a month later, and they said they had talked to Travis, and Travis agreed to meet with me. And his public defender at that time then said he would show me the surveillance footage from the Waffle House and the pictures of the aftermath of the shooting. So his mother paid me again to go back to Nashville a second time. And that time I got to see the surveillance video of the shooting, the aftermath pictures, and I got to meet with Travis for 3 days in a row, 2 hours per day, so 6 hours. And Travis and I kind of bonded then. Travis is very anti-government, as I am. And I told him my background, and he trusted me a lot more than his public defender attorney. Initially, we became pretty close, fast, actually. And he wanted me on the case. So I talked to his mother again, and I told her it was going to be a really difficult case because there was a lot of evidence against him. So, and I went back to Costa Rica, not knowing what would come of this or not at that point. I didn't know if that was the end of my involvement in it, or I don't know. But, at that point, I knew the evidence was pretty strong against him because just a little bit I had seen, and from talking to Travis too. So I was in Costa Rica a couple of weeks, and his mother wanted me to take the whole case, offered me a substantial amount of money to take the whole case. And I turned it down. And I turned it down because, one, I was retired. Two, I was living outside the country. Three, I did not have a license in Tennessee. Four, I had not done any cases in 5 years at that point. And five, I'd never done a murder trial. Although I've done about 1,000 trials, I've never done a murder trial. I've done some criminal cases too, criminal trials, but I was more of a generalist. I did all kinds of cases, not just criminal law. So for those reasons, I told her no. And I said, but I will interview some Nashville attorneys for you, and I'll pick out some I think are good, and you can hire one of them, and that'll be my part in this. So I did that. I called quite a few from Costa Rica and interviewed them, some at length, and I gave her a list of some I thought would be good. And I thought that was that. I thought I was done. And I don't know, a few weeks went by, and she called me and said she didn't like any of those attorneys and she still wanted me to do the case. And I said, well, let me think about it a couple of days, because I was really interested in the case. It's a really interesting case. And I like Travis. We were starting to bond at that point. I thought he was a good kid. And I wanted to help out as much as I could. But I didn't want to take the case for the reasons I gave a minute ago. So
this is just to kind of emphasize this, a murder trial is a really big deal and stressful for all parties involved, correct?
yeah, especially, the situation I was in, being out of the country and, I hadn't been in a courtroom in 5 years and that kind of, all those things. I didn't think I was the best one to handle this case. So I thought about it a couple more days, but I was really interested in the case and I liked Travis and I wanted to help. So I offered a compromise is that I would come on the case, but I would get to choose a local Nashville attorney to work with me. And I would do everything behind the scenes, and that attorney would do the court appearances. That was our agreement. And I agreed to take 25% of what I was initially offered to do the case. And I said, you can have the rest to pay the other attorney, 25% plus my travel expenses. And she agreed. So, and then I brought on Paul Bruno, who was my co-counsel in the trial, and Paul Bruno brought on his partner, Luke Evans, and we did the case together. So I started traveling to Nashville once a month to work on the case. And part of my agreement was that I would meet with Travis every other day I was in Nashville for an hour or more. That was part of my agreement with his mother. So I ended up spending at least 100 hours with Travis alone in jail, just talking about this or that. And we became quite close. I actually like Travis a lot. He's not the monster that he's being portrayed to be. He's actually a good kid. I consider him a friend, actually. So, I got all the evidence on the case, and it's a weird case, really. I got all his journals. He has journals going back years, 2 or 3 years, where he wrote in them a lot, every couple days, maybe.
So you got to know him really intimately.
Yes. And I got to read it. Yeah. And I got to read his journals. So I got to see how he was thinking, what was going on, going back years. And the journals, they're long. I mean, it took me, when I first read them, it took me about 10 hours to read them all. That's how long they are.
Wow.
Whenever I would have a question about something, I would just go right to the jail and ask Travis. Travis trusted me, and he would always give me an honest answer. I never thought he was lying to me ever. So I could really get into what really happened here. There were a lot of strange things with this that I wanted to look into. There's some questions about different theories I had. Was he? I guess what his complaints were is that he was always being stalked, hacked. His email being tampered with, his phone being tampered with. He was followed, and that was his chief complaint. So I wanted to look into that and see if it was true or not. And
this is something that a public pretender they're just not going to do. I mean, from my point of view, having a couple, they only really did as much as necessary not to get in trouble while defending me, but nothing extra that would help me.
Exactly. And this is part of the reason there was conflict between Travis and his public defender. Travis really wanted these things looked into. He strongly believed he was being stalked, harassed, what have you. So that's why I was brought on. So I started looking at these things, looking at his journals, and it didn't take me long to realize he had some kind of mental problem, no question. He's without a doubt the most mentally ill person I've ever come across in my life. No question, not even close. That being said, that does not rule out he wasn't tampered with in some way. You could have both. You could have,
Yeah.
We've seen it in some other cases. So I just started talking to people he knew in the past. I interviewed some of them, family members, combing through all the evidence, trying to see what was really going on. Was it just mental illness, or was he really being harassed? Was this some kind of, I don't know.
Like a combination of someone taking advantage of someone's mental illness. I know you kind of said there's been other cases like that where that's exactly what was going on.
Right. And this had a lot of red flags as far as could it be some kind of false flag event. We have the AR-15, the mass shooting with no motive, in the middle of the night. We have the white versus black minority, argument, white shooter shooting African Americans, and a lot of other things. So anyway.
I did notice on several articles, almost all of them actually, wanted to point out that he had a weapon of war. I've seen it quoted a couple times like that. AR-15, they have to use that, of course, because that's a big trigger word. But also they kept mentioning sovereign citizen over and over again in these articles, kind of trying to put people into a mindset that he was some kind of terrorist or a militia person. I mean, these key words kind of, they try to link them to all these other things that are in the news.
Exactly. And to me, that just raises more questions. But I like, in this, I've always wanted to be able to investigate like one of these questionable cases like this, where I have all the evidence, where I can actually talk to the defendant and have them answer my questions. And I finally got it in this case, which made it super interesting for me. But so I got an expert to look at his electronics, all of his electronics, his computers, his phone, everything. It was a former person who worked for this the Secret Service, protection of the president. So he used to work for them, so he knows all their methods, and he didn't find anything as far as hacking wise. So I talked to a lot of his friends, and they did not believe he was being hacked at all or any of that. They thought it was all mental illness. So we have that, and then I have several hundred of his videos that he made telling the story of what was going on. I watched all of those. It took me a long time, probably weeks to watch them all. And I did not find any evidence of anything going on. He complained a lot about it, but I didn't have any hard evidence of anything like that. And then I had to consider that this had been going on for years. When this started, he had no mental health involvement. He had never had any head injuries. He had never had any brain surgery. He'd never had any contact with a psychiatrist. He did not have any handler. All these things that I looked into. He did not have.
He's never been diagnosed with anything either before, prior to kind of spiral.
Not at that point. So I'm looking at all these things and I'm like, why would the government target this kid? He's not on their radar.
Yeah.
I mean, he's never had any head injury. Where would they do anything to him? And my conclusion was they wouldn't. But he started getting on their radar at some point. Well, first of all, he started contacting the police quite a bit and complaining about Taylor Swift, even the FBI. So he started getting on their radar around 2015, 2016, and was put into a mental hospital for a week in 2016 because he was looking for Taylor Swift in his hometown of Morton, Illinois, which is just a little farm town.
Yeah.
Anyway, the bigger event, though, was in 2017. He went to the White House to meet with Donald Trump. And the reason he went to the White House is not to hurt Donald Trump, but because he had complained to the police, like many times, the FBI, his parents, and various other people, of all this hacking, and no one would do anything about it. So he decided to go right to the top and try and take it up with the president to get it to stop. And he was arrested trying to get into the White House, into the grounds of the White House. Now, he was put on probation for that, and he had to, as part of the probation, he had to meet with the police in Illinois, where he lived at the time, to see if he was fit to still have his guns. So he did that. The FBI sat in on the interview, and they determined he was not fit to have his guns. So they were taken away. Now they were given back, or the police in Illinois had no authority to keep the guns. So his dad said he would hold the guns for him. Well, that was fine for a while, but Travis decided to move to Tennessee. Well, Travis was only banned from having guns in Illinois. So he asked his dad for the guns back. And his dad called the FBI, and the FBI told him, give him his guns. He's only banned from having them in Illinois.
Now that's a little bizarre, is it not?
Yeah. So now his dad's being charged criminally. So I'm not going to talk any more about that.
Okay.
That's that I know some about, but I don't want to discuss that because it's ongoing. Okay. Anyway, so Travis moves to Tennessee. It's around October 2017, I think. And so we're about 6 months before the Waffle House event. And he cuts off all contact with his parents, quits talking to the couple friends that he had. And he goes to work all day, operates a crane by himself, doesn't talk to coworkers, and goes home. And that's it. And he starts to spiral, his brain starts to spiral out of control. What previously was just all these fascinations with people hacking him and getting into his phone and things, well, now it gets worse. Now he's astral projecting every night. The aliens have given him superpowers. He thinks he's the first person to have telepathic powers. He thinks he's been appointed ruler of the earth. He's having threesomes every night with Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, Taylor Momsen, and various other celebrities. And he's just really gone off the rails. But he's cut off from his family at this point. He's cut off from his family, so they don't really get to see the downward spiral. Now, he wasn't right before, but he really dropped off after moving to Tennessee. So
is he diagnosed with schizophrenia? Is that okay? Yes. So this is involving usually audio hallucinations, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's on and on and on about all the things that happened that he was thinking were going on or seeing. It's talking about seeing a demon at one point, or riding on alien spaceships and going to their planets, and just really out there things. So his downward spiral, he was kind of cut off from everyone. Family, friends, there was no one to help him at that point, really. And he spent a few months over in the Knoxville area, and then he moved to Nashville. He kept moving because he wanted to try and get away from this. He thought if he would move, maybe they would lose track of him and it would stop for a while. He had previously moved to Colorado. So he went from Peoria to Colorado, back to Peoria, to Knoxville, to Nashville, all within about 2 years or maybe less. And he moved to Nashville January 2018, 3 months before I think it was January, maybe it might have been February 1st. But so he started going out to eat to the Waffle House by his house. And he would go there a couple times a week. And when he was there eating, he would hear people talking about different things that he would associate with his online journal, the one I talked about a little while ago.
Yeah.
He have an internet journal. It was just like on Microsoft Word. But anyway, he would write, and what I mean by that is he'd write, let's say, work was hazardous today, running the crane. I almost got hurt or something like that. So then he would go at the Waffle House and he would hear like someone mopping the floor saying, careful, the floor is hazardous, it's wet. So he would think that because that same word was used, that the people at the Waffle House had been reading his journal. So therefore they'd been hacking his computer. So therefore they were part of the government CIA that had been harassing him for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this kept happening when he would go to the Waffle House. And then he started to get very suspicious of the people there. And on the night in question, he was home, he fell asleep and woke back up, and it was about 1 or 2 a.m. on a Sunday. And he had a list of passwords for all his computer websites in a folder, and the folder was missing. So, and he kept saying that people were breaking into his apartment. And we actually played a video like that during the trial, where he complains about someone breaking in and lifting the toilet seat and leaving the bathroom door cracked open just to harass him and let him know that they were there. So it's that kind of thing where really have any hard evidence that anyone was there. Just he would see these little things and think somebody had been there. So his password folder was gone. So that was kind of the last straw for him, because now he had moved 5 times, I think, to try and get away from these people, what he calls them, these people. And this, the Waffle House people kept harassing him now in his new town. And now the passwords were gone. And he was big online, his passwords meant a lot to him. He was on all these different websites. Anyway. So
I could see how that would bother anybody, though. I mean, really, that's a big deal for, like, even for me. I'd be like screwed if I couldn't get all of my passwords to everything I do. So I could see how that could be a domino for somebody that was already stressing out on stuff.
Yeah, and he had, because he was so concerned about people hacking in, he would have like really long, difficult passwords, not like whatever.
Yeah.
Home 1, 2, 3. He didn't have passwords like that. They're all very long and complicated. Anyway. So he prayed. He asked God what to do because he was at his wit's end. He'd gone to the police, the president, moved several times, still continuing. Now the Waffle House people are bothering him too. So, and God spoke to him. And he said, you have to go to the Waffle House. You have to kill 3 people. Only wear a jacket, nothing else. Take your gun. And when you're done, you have to walk home. And once you do that, the harassment will stop forever. So
Hmm.
he didn't want to do it though. So he said out loud, I'm gonna go there a little after 3. So you better close because I don't want to shoot the place up. So close down and send everybody home.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So he warned them beforehand?
Said it out loud at his apartment because he
Oh,
thought it
all
was
right.
bugs
I got
because
you.
they're harassing him. So obviously it's bugs. So he gave a warning.
So
So
he attempted to stop it
he
himself,
said
like in his world.
stop it because he didn't want to do it. So he goes to the Waffle House and he's shocked because not only is it open, it's busy because the bars had just closed and it's early Sunday, so the Saturday night bar
Yeah.
crowd. And he parks his truck and he's conflicted because he doesn't really want to do it, but God told him to do it. So Joe Perez pulls up behind him in the parking lot and he's having car trouble and he puts on his 4-way flashers, his hazard lights, which is bad because Travis had written about hazards in his journal recently.
Yeah.
So to Travis, that was another, I don't know what you want to call it.
It's a little piece of vindication evidence or,
Like it was like a FU. We're not going to accept your warning. FU. Like
oh, I got you.
However you want to take it.
Yeah.
Like a screw you. Then, so one of the cooks is outside on a smoke break. Joe Perez gets out of his car, puts on a hat, goes to the back of it, gets a hat, and goes to talk to the cook, presumably for help with his car troubles, I suppose. And as soon as he walks by Travis sees the 3 on the side of Joe Perez's hat, which is the final insult to Travis because Travis 3 is like a very special number, like the Trinity.
Yeah.
3, and he believed he had 2 alien wives, so there were 3 of them. And he had previously sent Taylor Swift 999 starburst, 333 in 3 different flavors. So this was like a number he was obsessed with. He had written about it in his journal. So this was the final insult when you walk by him, put on the hazards, and then you go back in your car to get a hat specifically to put on that has the number 3 on it and walk right by Travis's truck. If you can see his mindset.
Yes.
So immediately after Joe Perez walks by, Travis gets out and shoots him in the head as he's walking up to the cook. And the cook charges him to try and tackle him, and Travis shoots him. He actually stumbles on one of those yellow parking things. Cement,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
What I mean?
Yeah.
Stumbles on it, and that's when Travis shoots him. Then he turns the other direction, and Travis shoots him in the head. So, and then Travis goes in to the Waffle House.
In Travis's mind, he's been provoked though already out in the parking lot. He took that as a provocation, the number, the hazard light. So in his mind, he's not only vindicated with what he thought God was telling him, but he also felt provoked by people that he thought were messing with him. These people that do these things.
Yeah, provoked, and he thought it was self-defense because he thought they were eventually going to kill him. The people that were breaking into his apartment and doing all these things to him.
Yeah.
His mind was self-defense. So then he goes in, people scramble everywhere. He shoots a couple shots to the left. He hits Aquila de Silva in the shoulder, and he'll bleed to death a couple hours later because the bullet severed an artery. And he hit Aquila's girlfriend, Shantia Wagner, and almost blew her leg off. Then he turns the opposite direction, goes to the right towards the bathrooms, stops at a booth, shoots two girls under a booth, kills one of them, hits her in the heart, shoots the other one 4 times, but she lives. And according to Travis, he did that because they were filming him doing the shooting with their iPhones. But that is not in the video. So it must have been a hallucination, I suppose. I don't know how else to explain it. Some kind of visual hallucination of Travis. So by them filming, he thinks they were in on the entire plot. They were part of all of this. So then he goes to, there's a swinging door to the right that leads to the bathrooms. And behind it is James Shaw peeking through the window. Travis fires one shot at his head. He just misses. He hits the frame of the window and the bullet ricochets off to the side. Then he goes to reload in front of that door. He's out of bullets. He'd fired 30 shots. And Shaw swings the door out and hits Travis, and they wrestle around. And the gun goes flying up into the kitchen. And Shaw pushes Travis outside, and Travis drops his coat. His coat had been ripped in the scuffle, and the arm was kind of just hanging there. So Travis took it off and dropped it, and he walked home a mile. And he takes a shower at his apartment, and then he packs a backpack.
And he's wearing nothing but the jacket, right?
No, well, as soon as he got out of the Waffle House, he dropped the jacket. So he was stark naked then.
Wow.
He walked on a busy road for his apartment's about a mile.
And this is another indication, almost always, even with law enforcement would agree that when you come across someone that has removed all their clothes or is not clothed, that they're not in the right frame of mind as a normal person.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah. So then he goes to his apartment. So he had done what God told him to do. He left his truck there with the keys in the ignition. He could have easily jumped in and taken that and fled. But God told him to walk home. So that's why he walked home. He takes a shower, packs a backpack, puts a gun in it, some silver bars, some water, and he goes out in the woods, and he goes to a house, and he crawls in the crawl space, and he hides there for 33 hours. There's the 3 again. Anyway, and then he plans to steal a semi and drive to Canada. But as he's approaching the place with the semis, he gets arrested. So that's kind of how that all went down. Now, he had written, and then after he's arrested, he kept writing journals in jail. And he wrote a letter to the judge confessing, telling him God told him to do it, and that, the aliens were involved, protecting him and all these things, basically admitting it. But, in his mind, he thought it was all justified. And they sent him to a mental hospital from the jail because he was not competent then. And he went there, I think, for 4 months or so, something like that. And they medicated him. He had never been on medicine before for this problem. And then they sent him back to jail. And that's where he stayed until the trial in solitary confinement. And at the trial, they used that against him, the fact that he went home, he took a shower to wash off the blood and packed the backpack. But he was scared because, not that he was going to get arrested, he was scared that the people that had been harassing him would now kill him.
Yeah.
The prosecutors try to portray it different, that he was, just planning an escape, which is kind of dumb.
Yeah, with silver and water. And
he left his truck with the keys in the ignition. He doesn't run home. He walks home on a busy road naked. It's kind of dumb. He didn't plan anything. He didn't have any cash, or very little. He had some silver bars, but how are you going to spend those?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then, so after he got out of the mental hospital, he was sent back to jail. He did a drawing on one of his food plates, and it was of the Waffle House shooting. And they brought this up at trial, and it was pretty damaging to our case. And it was just stick figures, but one was him shooting the people at the Waffle House. Well, another one was a black guy at the Waffle House looking at one of the dead bodies, and he said, he had one of those circles like you see in a cartoon with the point.
Yeah, he was the angel.
No,
like a halo.
Like in a cartoon, you can tell who's
Oh,
speaking.
I got you. The little text bubble.
Yeah. So he had that. It was coming from the mouth of the black guy looking over the dead body, and he was saying, "Oh shit, that nigger's dead." So the prosecutors try to paint Travis as some kind of racist because of that, but he was drawing what
he thought the person said.
Yeah, what the other person said at the event. It was not any kind of racist thing. Travis is very not racist, not at all. He actually has a black brother, and he's not racist the slightest bit, none. So this was kind of, I don't know, irritating that they were trying to make it racial. This event had nothing to do with race whatsoever, nothing. The people that were shot and killed there were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It could have been anybody.
Yeah, if it would have been a Waffle House full of whites, the same scenario probably would have went down.
It would have been the same thing. So it had absolutely nothing to do with race. And the prosecutors knew that. I mean, they had all his journals. They knew. So it's kind of irritating to us that they tried to make this about race, and they knew he was crazy too. So yeah. It was more of a political prosecution because
that's kind of what I was going to ask you. How did they justify, with all of the evidence over a long history that you just laid out for us, that he didn't have mental, or how did they balance and try to say, because he was found guilty now, how do they push the narrative that he wasn't mentally ill? Because it seems like there's overwhelming evidence that he was mentally ill.
Yeah. So in Tennessee, you have to show two things to meet the insanity defense. Someone is mentally ill, and because of their mental illness, they don't appreciate that what they did was wrong. So we easily met the first part. No, but no one questions that. It's the second part where we did not meet it. So because Travis said things like the drawing that I just mentioned from jail, they used the packing of the backpack, the packing of the gun in the backpack. And then he wrote some things in his journals that he wanted to punish the people at the Waffle House. So they tried to say that was planning, that he planned this out to kill them. And, also that God only told him to shoot 3 people, and he ended up shooting 7, killing 4. So they're saying, he didn't even do what God told him to do, things like this.
Yeah.
They tried to say, so he knew what he was doing was wrong. And him contemplating, giving the warning from his apartment, he knew what he was going to do is wrong. Him getting to the scene and waiting before he did it, waiting for a sign. So they tried to say that shows he knew what he was doing was wrong, things like that. So
it seems like there would be an exception for people that are mentally ill, whether they know it's wrong or not. They're still not in a mindset to, control what they're doing like someone else would. They don't even recognize that they're having issues in the way that the outside people notice. They think real things are happening to them. And I actually have known several people with schizophrenia, and the more you try to convince them that nothing's happening to them, the more they take that as a verification that it is. Mm-hmm. So like, if any of his family or his friends, I'm not saying this happened, but any of his friends or families tried to push him in the direction of mental health, he would have took that, in my opinion, as verification that people are plotting against him.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, because he was put in a mental hospital for a week in 2016 by his parents, and that's exactly what he thought, that they were in on all of this. Correct. So, which is part of the reason why he moved to Tennessee, to get away from his parents. So anyway, so to me, this was a political prosecution because the victims were Black and the shooter was white, in my opinion. If everyone was white or everyone was Black, there would have been an agreement to send Travis to a mental hospital and not done this. But the DA is up for election, and there was a recent case here in Nashville where a white cop shot and killed a Black man, and the DA settled it for a short sentence. I think it was like 3 years in jail for the cop, and the family of the deceased victim just went off in the courtroom, and they made like a huge scene, and it was all over TV here, which showed like, left the impression that the DA here is racist. So I think that played into it too.
Yeah. And all through this time period, since that happened, that's kind of the main narrative always. I could point out some stuff that will get me banned, like the news. I try to keep it where I don't get banned. But anyway, like CNN doing stuff like lightening people's skin color, or calling Middle Eastern people white men, specifically, like trying to, almost every single incident now is portrayed in this way.
Yes. So, we thought we had a good jury. I actually helped pick half the jury 2 weeks ago. I was heavily involved in that, questioning the potential jurors. We thought we hit a home run with our jury. But what happened, which we didn't see coming, is we had 2 experts to testify that Travis didn't know what he was doing was wrong at the trial. And we met with both of them, I think 3 times, prepping them for the trial. And they both came off really confident and, said they're experienced in this. And our first doctor, actually, I thought the testimony went really well, Dr. Wood. I thought we won't say hit a home run, but maybe a double with it. And then we had Dr. Eisen, who we thought would be even better for our case because she's African American. But she was the exact opposite of how she was when we talked to her in preparation. She crumbled under the pressure and just wrecked our case. We weren't expecting that at all. She totally fell apart, gave horrible answers. That at this point or that point, Travis knew what he was doing was wrong. And that was it. After that, our case was sunk. So that's kind of how all that went down, in my opinion. And
is there a chance for him to appeal the verdict, I guess?
Yeah, he's going to appeal for sure. I don't really know what his chances are, but I'm not going to be involved in it. I'm going to go back to retirement. This is kind of a difficult case for me because, you don't, as a lawyer, you try to not get personally involved with your client. I actually like Travis. I've spent so much time with him. It's been pretty difficult for me to see this go down how it did, especially knowing how ill he is. And, it was not premeditated. He's not a racist like they try and make him out to be. It's just a bad situation for everybody involved. Yeah. So I'm just not going to be involved in it anymore. Now, there were some things that I did find were questionable that I'm going to go over.
Sweet.
They did not rise to the level of any kind of conspiratorial defense, in my opinion. So there was one shot fired from outside the Waffle House that hit the glass. The front of the Waffle House is all glass. And the bullet shattered at a 90-degree angle. The glass shattered at a 90-degree angle to the bullet, which I found was very questionable.
You mean like from outside in the parking lot?
Travis
or somewhere?
and Travis was in the video shooting. He was in the parking lot, hit the window, and the bullet broke the glass at a 90-degree angle to the bullet instead of straight. I don't know if I'm making sense. You'd expect the glass to break straight from where the bullet hit it.
Yeah.
It broke at an angle like this. Like it took a sharp right.
Yeah.
90 degrees right. So, which to me, I question whether there was another shooter. Well, I looked at all the videos and I did not see another shooter in any of the videos. But from that direction, there is a little hill or a grassy knoll.
I knew you were going to say that.
Which you cannot, there's no video from behind it. I cannot see anything there. I couldn't see a gun or anything. But I just had to rule that out because the timing was too perfect for when Travis fired the shot and the glass breaking. I mean, the timing of a shot from another shooter would have had to be a second. And we had the video analyzed and it was not edited ever.
Yeah.
Sorry, the surveillance video from the Waffle House, we had an expert look at it. It was never edited. So to me, I had to rule that out. I did have 7 gun experts look at it, and 3 said it was possible for the glass to break like that, and 4 said it was impossible. So just curious, a bit curious. Now there was another Shantia Wagner, one of the girls who survived, was shot in her leg. In her interview with the police, she said she was shot from outside, not inside. And at that time, Travis was inside shooting. So she said she was shot from the other side of the Waffle House, which is all woods. So like the other video I just mentioned, I looked at that one. There's nobody out there, but there is a heavily wooded area.
Yeah.
Which I guess potentially there could be a shooter out there. I don't think there is. I think it's just a mistake in her perception of what went. It's something I questioned and looked into. I got her medical records and I looked at the angle of her wound, the bullet entering her leg, and I'm pretty much convinced she was shot from inside. So there was that. Then there was a Twitter post by this kid in Nashville who said he goes to the gym with James Shaw, and James Shaw, he said, told him there would be an event the next week, and it would be some kind of mass shooting or something along those lines. It was going to be a false flag shooting, something like that. I have to go look at the exact wording. The week before this happened. So all I had was a Twitter name. You know, it was like a few letter nickname of this kid. So I had to hunt down. It took me 8 hours to figure out who he was. And I went right to his house to talk to him. And he wasn't there. I talked to his mom, and he refused to talk to me. He would not discuss it. We tried 3 or 4 different times. We sent a PI out there to talk to him. He would not discuss it. So I just had to determine that was just a kid shooting off his mouth on Twitter. I don't know. But something else was a little weird is so James Shaw was going to the Waffle House with his friend Brennan McMurray. They got there about a minute and a half before the shooting started. Well, as they're walking in, Brendan McMurray takes a quick look at Travis, who's sitting in his truck at that time. And he says, you got to watch for those crazy people. Sometimes they'll just come into a place and shoot it up. Which, you know, it's 3:30 in the morning. they got to be tired. And they looked at Travis for all of 1 second in the video. And I just thought that was a weird comment because less than 2 minutes later, Travis did exactly that. He came in and shot the place up. So it was just a weird comment. But anyway, when James Shaw did his interview with the police after the event, he said to the police, "I don't know if I should tell you this," which is kind of weird. And then he says, you know, when we were going into the restaurant, Brennan said what I just told you, you know, I saw Travis and yada, yada, yada. So the I don't know if I should tell you is kind of weird to me because it's almost like they were involved in something nefarious. So I don't know if I should tell you, the police. Well, why not?
Yeah.
Why would you tell the police? Not like you're involved in any of this, but anyway. Then as Shaw is discussing them coming into the restaurant, he says to the police, something like, "I chose our seats because I like to have a visual of the door," which to me is
I say that all the time.
Okay.
I like to have my back against the wall and to look at the door if I go to places. I actually do say that to people all the time.
Not that he was saying that. Like, I like to have a visual of the door.
Yeah.
Okay. Then during the trial, when he was describing the event, he said he moved to the side to conduct surveillance of the shooting, which I thought was another strange wording.
Now that's totally bizarre.
Yeah, I moved to the side so I could surveil what was going on, something like that. Which again, it to me is like more cop talk. Yeah. So I think, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, and I don't have any hard evidence on this, but I think the White House incident where Travis went to the White House, I think that kind of put him on the radar of the feds. And I think he was being surveilled after that, which was July 17, he went to the White House. I don't know this for a fact. I'm pretty sure I'm right, and I'll tell you why. And I think it was McMurray and Shaw that were doing the surveillance. So first of all, in the opening of the prosecutors at the trial, they said they received help from the Secret Service in this case. Well, the Secret Service do not appear in any of the evidence we have. No reports, no mention of any of their officers doing anything, nothing. And we have pretty detailed reports of everybody involved. Like each cop involved wrote, a report of what they did, even if it was very insignificant.
Yeah.
But we have none from Secret Service agents. So, which was very strange. I forgot one other thing too. So when Shaw's doing his interview with the police, he says, this is 3 days later at the police station. He says, "Are you guys going to do an interview with my friend Brennan?" And there are two cops there. One says, "No, we don't need to talk. We got enough from him the other night." And then the other one says, "No," and switches the subject really quick. Which, if you maybe you need to see the video, but it just came off as really weird to me. Like, that's a topic we don't want to talk about. Is kind of impression I got.
So they put it off right away.
Yeah, like, no, switches the subject. It was kind of like, let's not talk about that. We're on video, something like that. So that, to me, that says there's something going on there with those two. Now, they did not have guns at the Waffle House, though, so I don't know I could be reading this wrong, but I would think if they're conducting surveillance, they would have guns, but maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of position where they don't carry weapons, but I think they were conducting some kind of surveillance.
Well, it would just make sense if, I mean, from anybody else that I know of that's been involved in any of these things so far, there's a phrase that always comes up. We were aware of him, kind of meaning that they were watching or interacting in some way, but they're not going to say what. And I'm not saying that this happened, and you've pretty much said that you haven't seen any real substantial evidence of it. But do you think it's possible that after let's put it this way, maybe not him specifically, but someone else in a similar position that's kind of spiraling out of control, and now that someone knows that they believe certain things, that they sometimes nudge people in a direction to escalate their mindset, if that made sense.
Well, that's kind of the position of his family, kind of what they think. I can't say I've seen any evidence of that, so I have to say no. But that would fit along with what Travis says, if you believe what he says. The issue I have with that is he was saying all these same things years ago when he was a nobody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where do you draw the line there? All these years it was in his head, and then now it's real. I mean, I don't know. But all I can say is I've seen no evidence of any of that was real. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. The only evidence I've seen, and it's somewhat circumstantial, is that he was being put under surveillance. And
Yeah.
I'll give you now I'm going to tell you the most damning evidence that he was under federal surveillance. I've given you the lead up. So 5 days before the Waffle House shooting, Travis took his truck down to a car dealership in Brentwood, which is it's a suburb of Nashville. And he went in the car dealership, asked to see a car. He didn't ask to drive it. He just asked to see it. So they didn't take his driver's license. He goes out with one of the saleswomen to the car. She sits in the car in the passenger seat. He sits in the driver's seat. She's showing him all the features of it. And after a few minutes, he says, "I'm going to take the car." And she says, you're going to buy the car? And he says, "No, I'm going to take the car." And he took the key out of her hand and told her to get out and took the car. Drove away with it. And then he was put under, it's a high-speed chase, but it wasn't at high speeds. It was kind of just slow.
Yeah, it was just a slow pursuit.
Yeah, he was put under pursuit. And you can actually watch the video on YouTube. It's on YouTube. But the cops call it off after like 2 minutes because it's in rush hour in Nashville, and it's pretty dangerous. So Travis drives it right to his apartment, parks it outside, and then goes into his apartment. Well, they had GPS on the car, so the dealership knew exactly where he was going. So the cops show up a couple hours later, fingerprint the car, haul it away. They have him on video at the car dealership. They have him on video at the apartment complex. They know who he is. They call the car dealership and they said, "Don't worry, we know who this guy is. He's a local mentally impaired guy." Tell them that. This was
so that's on record right there.
Yeah, I think it was the next day, Wednesday. This happened on a Tuesday. I think the next day they called the car dealership and said, "We know who this guy is. No worries. He's just a local mentally impaired person." So, but they don't arrest him. Wednesday goes by, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They don't arrest him. Because you or I, we would have been arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have tons of evidence against him, knew where he lived and everything.
And it's kind of unlikely that something to that degree would be left to officers' discretion, not to charge them or anything.
Yeah. So the point I'm getting at is, to me, this is evidence of Fed surveillance with a local police stand down. The Feds said, stand down. We have this guy, under surveillance, so don't take any action on the stolen car.
Yeah.
That's what it screams. I can't prove it. I discussed it with my co-counsel. Do we want to get surveillance records? Because I really believe he was under surveillance. And my co-counsel were against it because it wasn't really relevant to our case. Because even if I'm right,
Yeah.
it's not the case. None of that is illegal. It has no bearing on what happened at the Waffle House. Completely legal. And it would have been some kind of effort to try and get those surveillance records from the Feds that don't even want to admit that he's under surveillance. So if we would have gotten them at all, they might have hit. I don't know. But anyway, so they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to look into it anymore. And actually, they don't agree with me that he was under surveillance. So that's a point of contention. I mean, not that we're arguing about it, just that we disagree on it. But for the case we're on, it was not really relevant.
Yeah.
But to me, that screams he was under Fed surveillance, and that's why he wasn't arrested. Which, of course, they would never want to admit now, because 5 days later, he killed 4 people. And he should have been in jail.
Yeah.
If he was arrested. So you can see what I'm getting at, why I don't think they would ever admit that. That he was under surveillance, and they did not arrest him intentionally for that reason. So.
Yeah, that would be liability.
There would be outrage. There would be complete outrage over it. Anyway, I can't prove that, but to me, that's what happened. So when I look at this whole case as a whole, I don't think it's any kind of MK Ultra. I don't think it's any kind of voice to skull technology. I've seen no evidence of that. I've asked questions about that. I don't think he was talked into doing this by any kind of handler.
Yeah.
Where we see some of these cases where he's given a plan and weapons and a vehicle and told to go do XYZ. It's not a case of that. But to me, it's more a case of, how there was always this debate about 9/11, whether it was let it happen on purpose or made it happen. To me, this is a let it happen. Let it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if there was some kind of surveillance. And like I said, we've seen other cases that have went further as far as a government involvement. And I know you're not saying there was any, but we've seen it. And let me be honest, when we go through all the points of the things that he was tripping on, I could point you to hundreds of YouTube channels that cover all of those topics, the numbers, like astral projection, and all of these things are presented to the public. And I'm not saying they're not real, but they are presented. I would say thousands, maybe even a million channels all discuss these similar things as if they're a reality. So if anybody felt like that was happening, whether through mental illness or they just believed it, they would get verification everywhere they looked if they frequented the internet.
Right, exactly. So, especially if you're mentally ill. So another thing, he would get tripped up on, what do I want to say? You know how you'll go search for whatever on the internet, and then you'll start seeing ads for that, whatever you search for.
Yep.
Pop. That.
Or what you were talking about privately with the phone just sitting there. Because they do that, and they've admitted to doing that, targeted ads.
Yes, but to him, that was evidence he was hacked. Not only that, but he thought they were sending him messages.
Yeah.
By doing this. So, he would see he'd see like a movie where there's some sort of gay reference in it or something, and watch that movie, and then you'd start seeing different things about homosexuality pop up on his computer. So then he thought, Taylor Swift wanted him to try out being gay. So, because he thought Taylor Swift was his girlfriend.
Is there any kind of reason that he picked her, or is that just
Yes.
randomly who popped in his head to kind of
No.
fixate on?
No. So here's what happened. So he went to her concert in June 15, I think, by himself. I think it was in St. Louis. And she smiled at him and said hi as he was in the crowd. So then he became infatuated with her and started writing her letters, gave her a phone. He preloaded minutes on a phone, sent it to her for her to call him. He sent her, all those starbursts I talked about a little while ago, 333 of 3 different colors.
Wow.
He bought her an engagement ring, $14,000 engagement ring, drove to her condo in New York to give it to her and propose, but he could not get to her floor. He made it in the building, but he could not get to her floor. There was a security lock on the elevator. And then he went back to Illinois, and then short time later, he drove to her home in LA to propose, but it was under renovation and he couldn't get into the property there either. So, but then he would follow her social media closely, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. And he would think she was sending messages to him by different social media posts, some sort of coded messages.
Yeah.
So giving him instructions to do this or that or what have you. And that led to him believing that she came to Morton, Illinois on one occasion, which led him to search for her in Morton, Illinois, even going up onto the roof of the Dairy Queen because he thought he saw her on the roof. And that's when he got put into the mental hospital for a week because of that specifically. But at some point, he turned against her, I think, because he would interpret some of these messages as a certain way and then be disappointed when that didn't happen. For instance, she's coming to Morton, Illinois to visit him, and she would not be there. He'd start to turn against her and think that she was part of this harassment scheme.
Yeah.
And it was CIA, FBI, this grand scheme of harassment against him. So that's kind of how he started to turn against her and thought she was, just a CIA agent that was part of this harassment plan. But anyway, that's kind of how it all played out.
And me personally, just from reading and this is without you, like before I even talked to you, and I'm kind of skeptical on media articles always, the way they word things. But I found clear evidence in my mind that he was mentally unstable, just from what I read from their version of what was happening. So I kind of find it hard to believe that sane people would find him guilty of premeditated, anything, and realize that with all of the evidence that he was mentally unstable.
Yeah, we thought we had a really good case on this because he's so mentally ill. He's extremely mentally ill. The problem is that second prong of the test here in Tennessee that says you have to not be able to understand what you're doing is wrongful. So, and there was some evidence could be interpreted that way if you see it that way. Him talking in the Waffle House, him fleeing with a backpack with a gun in it, and buying silver 2 days before in anticipation that he's going to go into hiding or whatever you want to say, and him wearing a jacket. The prosecutors tried to say he wore a jacket so he could put extra magazines in the pockets, which is complete BS, but the jury must have bought into it somewhat. But
So they used a lot of anecdotal kind of stuff to try to twist it
Yeah,
to make it seem like he was plotting out things. Because what you've told me, I mean, silver's a good idea for a long investment. I get that, and I hear a lot of people, so I could see why he might have thought that that was going to do something. But at the same time, most of us know you're not going to do nothing with pure silver right away, except for maybe go to a pawn shop. So just that by itself was more evidence telling me that he's not thinking in the right way.
yeah.
Because and anybody that's scared would take the gun. I mean, these are all reasonable things for someone that has a certain mindset to be doing, but not a sane person.
Right. That was exactly our thinking too. And our thinking was we have these two experts. They're both appointed by the court. We didn't hire either one. We actually had three. We actually had three experts, all appointed by the court. And then a week before, we met with them all. One of them kind of got a little wishy-washy on us, and we nixed him. We decided we were going to stick with the two strong ones. And we're like, well, we have these two experts. They're going to come in and say he didn't know what he was doing at the time of the event. He thought he was acting in self-defense and was directed by God. And then one of our experts completely crumbled on the stand. So then it was like one expert for each side, and that wasn't enough. We needed 2-0. The prosecutors didn't even bring in any experts at all in this, none. So it was all a case of, he did this, so he was planning, he did that, so he knew what he was doing, and that kind of thing. And then our one expert crumbled, so that it ruined our case. So.
And in your view, they did use this particular case to try to use it for an instance of propaganda for other things that were irrelevant actually to the situation. Like as far as racial components.
There was no, yeah, they tried to really play that up. Even James Shaw came in and lied on the stand and said, Travis said, that nigger just took that gun from me, which was a complete lie, because he interviewed with the police 3 days later, and he said Travis never said anything racial during the whole incident. So when he got on the stand and said that, I about fell out of my chair, because it had appeared nowhere in anything that James Shaw said before, even all these interviews he did.
Yeah.
And we showed the interview he did with the police where he said that and kind of showed that he was lying. But then they brought out the drawing Travis did on the food tray from prison, and tried to say Travis was using the N-word in that drawing. But again, he wasn't.
In a third person.
Of what he saw that day where someone else said that, a black man, even a stick figure that was black head is how he was drawn on the styrofoam. So it was, again, propaganda to make this a racial case when it was the farthest thing from a racial case. So they really twisted the facts, and used propaganda and flat out lies. They tried to say Travis picked his parking spot at the Waffle House because he could see in good, but he parked in front of a brick wall. This is ridiculous things.
Well, just as an example, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but I'm pretty sure you've gone over all the, phone calls and things like that he made. They're showing a phone call that he made to this electronics shop, and he asked them kind of point blank. And in this clip, you could tell that he's mentally ill right there, because he asked the electronics guy, if I let you fix my stuff or whatever, you're not going to put nothing on it that later when they analyze it, they're going to find. And he's like, what? And then he's like, you know what, screw you or whatever, because he feels like the guy's in on it already during the phone call. And that right there was evidence that he's in his own world. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the video we played in court. We played a 12-minute YouTube video of Travis's where, he says he just came back from the store or something, and now his toilet seat's up, and he's ranting about that because he left it down and the bathroom door was cracked when he left it all the way open. And then he was saying, it must be that Taylor Swift, she's a tranny and she wants to be a man. And so she came in, broke in, lifted the toilet seat to pee. and just whacked out things. And then he's like, calls her a feminist Nazi, and it's just really bizarre. And after watching that, you can't help believe that he's very mentally ill. But again, that's not where we lost the case. We lost the case on the second part of the insanity defense, which is, did he know right from wrong? Did he know what he was doing was wrong? And that's where we lost it. You could tell that because when the jury was deliberating, they came back with a question, and the question was, when we're considering wrongfulness, do we consider that as a sane person would consider it or a mentally ill person would consider it? So you could tell by that point they had already agreed on prong one of the test, which is the person has a mental impairment, which was not, so we convinced the jury of that. I don't think anyone in the courtroom thought he did not have a mental impairment, but it was the second prong of the test we did not meet.
Yeah, I fully expect them to continue to use actually this case as an example in a bunch of them, because just from this trusted CNN clip here, because they're trusted at CNN, the way they frame it right here is that he's more of a terrorist and less of someone that's having trouble with reality. And just right here, I don't know if you can read that. He's asking if they're going to find anything on it when he gets it back from being fixed, and then someone's going to analyze his stuff. So he's thinking already in the future that people are looking through his electronic devices, and it's just kind of evidence to me right there. But all of these articles make sure to mention the gun type, that he said he was a sovereign citizen one time in his life, things like that.
Yeah. And actually, we could have played hundreds of videos like that at the trial. The thing is, we had the jury already convinced that he was mentally ill. We didn't really have much to prove that he didn't know what he was doing was wrong. So we didn't have much to that. So we only chose to play the one video, because if you watch that, you can tell the mental illness. It's the second prong that we had a problem with. So all right. So I mean, you can look back in hindsight and second guess you did this or that, but we made decisions we thought were best, and it didn't work out. So that's all I can say on this. To me, it's the wrong decision, and they're locking up a mentally ill person.
I actually would agree based on what I've seen and heard and read. So kind of in closing, what should people take away from this case about not only your defendant, but the whole situation as a whole?
Well, so the whole situation, the legal system in the US makes it too difficult to be sent to a mental hospital, this insanity defense. I mean, they're punishing mentally ill people for things they don't even understand. Just their illness is making them do it, and they're sending them to prison because the test to get a verdict under the insanity defense is so difficult. So there's that problem. But a lot of Americans just don't have the experience with mentally ill people to see or know what it's really like, and they assume that these people think logically like they do, when it's anything but. It's anything but that. They don't think logically at all. Their thinking is really screwed up, but to them it makes sense. So, and the other thing is, the media and government use this as propaganda to push whatever narrative they want to push. I'm sure it'll be pushed for banning AR-15s or different racial issues or this or that, when in fact this was strictly a mental illness case. And then the other point I want to make is, I really think he was under Fed surveillance. I know a lot of people won't agree with me on it. My co-counsel doesn't even agree with me on it, but I do. I really believe he was under Fed surveillance. I'm not sure what agency, FBI or Secret Service, would be my logical guess. Telling local police to stand down, and that's why this happened. Really, the families of the victims should look into this. They should be outraged by it, because if it were you or I stealing the car and they knew we did it, we would have been arrested. They wouldn't let 5 days go by and not arrest us. And that, it's a real tragedy, because that led to, in part, the shooting 5 days later. So it's a tragedy for everybody involved. I feel really bad for Travis. He doesn't deserve to be locked up in a prison forever. He deserves to be in a psychiatric hospital getting treatment. I feel bad for the families of the victims, but I feel bad for the family of Travis too. I know a lot of people don't think of that, but they're really suffering too, knowing their son's mentally ill, son, brother, and he's not going to get out of prison at all. So it's tough. It's tough all around. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. So what lies in the future for Kurt Richard Haskell? Just retirement and cool photos from Costa Rica? Or are you going to continue to analyze cases? Because your Facebook is like a website of its own, right? So if you're kind of in the circle and you get to look at what you're tripping on, it's really cool. You can find Kurt on Facebook, Kurt Richard Haskell. And you bring up lots of points that bring up thought and discussion about things. And I like the way that you never really say things are exact unless you know that they're exact. I appreciate that about you, even though you're willing to admit that some things may be happening that are not in the norm. And we've talked before about you've been in the middle of those. And if anybody wants to watch those, I'm actually going to go find the links. I have them up on Rumble. Nobody's watching them because I got banned from that original channel, and then I opened a Rumble, but I didn't really load anything except for what was banned before to test it out. But I'm going to put together kind of like a whole little Kurt Richard Haskell playlist on there. And then I'll send you over the links to your Facebook. And so far, so good, because we didn't get turned off yet. So,
all right. So far, so good. I'm sure it'll happen soon.
Right. Anyway, I want to appreciate you coming on and getting a chance to tell a side of the story that probably is not going to be told on the media. So this is kind of an exclusive as far as your side of things.
Just so you know, I actually saved this all for you. The mainstream media really wanted me to talk about it, and I refused. And I knew you and I had a short talk about doing this interview a few weeks ago, and I wanted to save it for you.
Sweet. And I really appreciate that. I can't say a bunch of people are going to watch it because I'm starting a new channel, but we'll try to share it around, and maybe people will watch it and kind of think about this topic, because this is a big topic in our country right now, is mental illness versus violence. And a lot of the times they, like we've said, they portray things not in the way they actually are, which does a disservice to the entire society, not just the people involved. But the fact that it's so hard to treat people that have mental illnesses at the same time as having so many programs supposedly doing it. But still this happens. Yeah,
it's a tragedy, really. And the legal system is not designed to help people. It's designed to punish. So that's what it is. It is what it is right now.
Yeah, the penal
like
system.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming on, Kurt. And I'm gonna end